peaceful morning drive spirals into a humiliating confrontation when Bella Pearce, a quiet, elegant black woman in a luxury sedan, is pulled over by two white officers who assume the worst before she can say a word. Stripped of dignity and questioned like a criminal, Bella's silence speaks louder than their authority, because she's hiding something they never saw coming as the line between prejudice and power snaps under the weight of her truth. The next day promises a reckoning they never expected. What happens when the woman they tried to break turns out to hold their fate in her hands? Bella Pearce never slouched. Not at church, not in court, not even in private. Every inch of her posture carried the legacy of women who were told to shrink, who chose not to. She sat with her spine aligned and her shoulders back, one hand gliding over the edge of a brown leather briefcase that had traveled with her through 20 years of judicial service. A stillness wrapped around her as she double-checked the event itinerary one last time, seated in the driver's seat of her black Lincoln. She'd timed her stop perfectly, just 20 minutes before she needed to be back on the road to Crestwood, where she was the keynote speaker for the State Judicial Ethics Conference. It wasn't a minor event. The governor would be there, and half the state's legal community. Bella smoothed a small crease in the sleeve of her navy blazer. The silk scarf at her neck had shifted slightly during the drive, and she adjusted it with quiet precision. She didn't glance in the mirror. She didn't need to. Bella Pearce always checked herself before leaving the house. Always. There was no sign, no warning, just that flicker in the rear view. A state police cruiser rolling past, then slow. She noticed how it hovered. She did not move. Years of experience told her not to. The cruiser stopped 10 yards ahead, idled for a moment, then reversed. Tires crackled over loose gravel until it settled directly behind her. Inside her chest, something cold stirred. Not fear. She had long buried the instinct to panic, but a practiced awareness. The same awareness she'd seen mirrored in the eyes of young black men on the witness stand, trying not to look afraid of the very system that called them liars for doing so. Her hands moved without thought, tablet set aside, window lowered halfway, both palms returned calmly to the steering wheel, the posture of compliance, the performance of safety. She watched the side mirror. The driver's door opened. Out stepped a white man in his mid-40s, broad-shouldered, with a bulletproof vest that seemed tighter than it needed to be. His walk was purposeful, not hurried. He approached her vehicle like it had already done something wrong. She recognized the type immediately. His name, she would learn later, was Officer Travis Dunlap. He didn't smile, didn't tap on the glass gently. He came to her window and stood close enough that she could see the reflection of her scarf in his mirrored sunglasses. "License and registration," he said, his voice low, clipped. She didn't ask why. That part came later. "Of course, officer," Bella said, her tone composed, neutral. She reached slowly toward the compartment, her movements deliberate, exaggerated so there'd be no confusion. The moment her hand reached into her purse, he stiffened. She noticed. She paused. "Is it all right if I retrieve my wallet?" she asked. A silent beat passed. He didn't answer. She took that as a yes. She produced the wallet, flipped it open, and removed her license. Then she pulled her vehicle registration from the glove box, arms never fully lowering. Her years on the bench had taught her something more valuable than any legal precedent. Survival depended on performance. Dunlap snatched both documents from her with one hand, then stared at them longer than necessary, his lips pressed together. "You from around here?" Bella took a slow breath before answering. "I'm on my way to a judicial conference in Crestwood," she said, her voice as calm as rain on glass. "Just stopped to review my notes." Dunlap didn't respond. He looked from the license back to her face, as if he were matching the image to a disguise he didn't believe. "This car registered to you?" "It is." He looked past her into the car, as though scanning for something illegal. The only things visible were a tablet, her leather briefcase, and a half-empty bottle of spring water. He stepped back from the window and motioned to someone behind her. Bella hadn't seen the second cruiser pull in. She hadn't heard it either. The rookie officer, slim, pale, baby-faced, stood beside his superior now. Dunlap jerked his chin toward the door. "Step out of the vehicle." Bella didn't move. "I'm sorry, officer," she said carefully. "Have I done something to warrant stepping out?" There was a report of a vehicle matching this description, involved in a theft at a gas station up the road. Black sedan, female driver. She blinked slowly. Not in disbelief, in disappointment. "That's not possible," she replied. "I haven't stopped at any gas stations. I came directly off the highway and pulled into this rest area." Out of the car. This time the command was louder. The young officer beside Dunlap shifted his weight. He looked at Bella, then at Dunlap, and back again. But he said nothing. Bella unbuckled her seatbelt. Her fingers were steady. She opened the door slowly and stepped out. The rookie instinctively stepped back. Dunlap didn't move. She stood tall, over 6 feet in heels. She was an imposing figure, elegant, poised, absolutely unbothered by the dust on the roadside or the subtle threat curling around them. Dunlap's gaze was hostile. "Keep your hands where I can see them," he snapped. She obeyed. "What's in the briefcase?" "Legal documents." "Open it." She hesitated. "Are you conducting a lawful search, officer?" He didn't answer. He reached forward. That's when she saw it. His thumb hovering over the snap of his holster. His hand didn't touch the gun, but it hovered just close enough. "Do you have a warrant?" she asked, this time louder, firmer. "No, ma'am. Just doing my job." "I'm sure you are." Her words cut the air clean. He took the briefcase from the seat and set it on the hood. He opened it without permission. Inside, just as she'd said, papers, manila folders, a pair of reading glasses, and a neatly labeled agenda for the Crestwood Judicial Conference. "This is the region." He froze at the sight of it. Bella watched his shoulders tense, watched the slow dawn of recognition begin to bloom behind his unreadable expression. "Okay. Let's get started." Exercise helped Ashley Bella release her unreadable expression. She said nothing. She didn't smirk, didn't gloat, because the point wasn't to shame him. It never had been. She just wanted to drive to work. After several minutes of hushed murmurs between the officers, Dunlap returned to her with the documents. "No charges," he said, almost as if it were a favor. "We'll let you go." Bella took back her license. "Let me go?" she echoed, softly. He didn't reply. She got into her car, started the engine, drove away without another word. The rookie officer stared after her car long after it vanished. Dunlap pulled out a notebook, jotted something, and slammed the cruiser door behind him. He never once asked her name again. But the next morning he'd learn it in the courtroom, printed on the nameplate mounted on the bench. Officer Travis Dunlap had made a career out of trusting his gut, and his gut didn't like quiet black women in expensive cars. He wouldn't say that out loud, of course, not to his partner, not even to himself, but every time he saw a vehicle that looked like it cost more than his house, and a driver who didn't match the picture in his head of what success should look like, he felt something churn beneath his badge. That morning it was a black Lincoln parked perfectly straight between 2 white lines at the Fairgrove rest stop. Nothing illegal, nothing suspicious, just still. Too still. "She's been sitting there for a while," Dunlap muttered as he glanced in the rear view. His partner, Officer Cole Renshaw, leaned forward. "Yeah, but it's a rest stop," Cole said, voice light. "She's resting." Dunlap didn't respond. He had already shifted the car into reverse, gravel crunching under the tires as they backed toward the sedan. He'd seen it all before. Rental cars used for drug drops, luxury vehicles as bait for theft rings. That's what he told himself, that it was about the pattern, not the person. But as he stepped out of the cruiser and walked toward the driver's side, the lie felt thin. The woman inside didn't look startled, didn't fumble or reach or shrink. She met his arrival with eerie calm, her window already lowered halfway, her hands clearly placed on the steering wheel. Her nails were neatly manicured, her suit sharp, her posture unbending. "License and registration," he said. No greeting, no introduction. Her voice was smooth but carried weight. "Of course, officer," she replied, and began to reach slowly into her purse. Dunlap watched every movement. The rookies always joked about how smooth traffic stops were supposed to go. But traffic stops never felt smooth to him. They were moments to seize control before it slipped. He motioned for Cole to join him, and the younger officer approached carefully. The woman handed over her documents. Her name was Bella Pearce. He didn't register it, just skimmed the ID and looked back at her face. She was calm. Too calm. "You from around here?" Dunlap asked. "I'm on my way to a conference," she answered. "Just reviewing notes before I head in." Cole tilted his head slightly, reading the air. Something about her presence seemed familiar. He couldn't place it. Dunlap, however, wasn't thinking. He was operating. "Step out of the car, please." Bella blinked, then gave a practiced nod. "May I ask why?" "There was a report of a stolen vehicle matching this description," Dunlap said. "We need to make sure everything checks out." Cole flinched. That wasn't true, not even close. Bella's voice remained calm. "This vehicle is registered in my name. I have not been to any gas stations, nor have I stopped anywhere other than this lot." Dunlap's jaw tensed. "Out of the car." He wasn't used to being questioned, especially not by someone who didn't raise her voice, didn't plead, didn't look scared. She stepped out, taller than Cole expected, nearly eye level with Dunlap. Her presence wasn't loud, but it filled space. "Hands where I can see them," Dunlap added, even though they already were. Bella stood still, hands at her sides, calm as stone. "Search the vehicle," Dunlap said to Cole. "Sir, do we—" "The patients do it." Cole hesitated, then opened the passenger door. There was a tablet, a water bottle, and a briefcase resting on the front seat. He opened it carefully. Inside were folders labeled with courtroom cases, a copy of the state judicial code, and a badge, not a police badge, one issued to federal and state officials. Cole froze. "Travis," he called, stepping back. "I think you should see this." Dunlap stopped around the car, annoyed. But when he saw the badge and the name engraved on the inner leather fold, Judge Bella M. Pearce, he stopped cold. He didn't speak. Neither did she. She simply watched them, not with triumph, not with vengeance, but with patience. Cole swallowed hard. "Ma'am, I apologize for the misunderstanding." Dunlap cleared his throat. "You're a judge?" Bella tilted her head slightly, a quiet yes embedded in the gesture. "You could have mentioned that," he muttered. "Would it have changed your approach?" she asked. Dunlap's mouth opened, then shut. Bella stepped forward and gently took her briefcase back, closed it, and returned to her car without another word. Cole watched her leave. Dunlap stood like a man whose foundation had just cracked. Inside the Lincoln, Bella finally let her hands shake, just for a moment. Then she gripped the wheel, found her breath, and pulled back onto the highway. She didn't cry. She didn't scream. But the ache, old and familiar, pressed into her ribs. Not because it had happened, but because it could still happen. After all these years, after all her work. At the next light, her phone buzzed. A text from her daughter, Clara. "Can't wait to hear about the conference. Knock 'em dead, Mom." Bella stared at the message, her fingers hovering over the screen. She started to type. "I just had an incident. Pulled over. Harassed." But she deleted it. She typed again, "On my way, love you," and hit send. Because Clara had a trial this morning. Because the day was still moving forward. Because dignity, to Bella Pearce, had never been about silence. It had always been about choosing when to speak. The courthouse lobby bustled with the kind of noise that felt orchestrated. Heels clicking over tile, soft murmurs bouncing off marble columns, and the distant echo of papers being shuffled by hands moving too fast to care. Bella Pearce moved through it like a phantom. Colleagues greeted her with smiles, respectful nods, and well-meaning compliments on her upcoming address at the ethics conference. She offered polite smiles in return, but none of them saw the fresh bruise under her calm. She'd done her makeup as usual that morning, nothing flashy. Light powder, neutral lipstick. The kind of face the law liked on a woman. Polished, palatable, unreadable. But no amount of preparation had stopped her hand from trembling slightly when she fastened her judicial nameplate to her robe. Inside her chambers, she closed the door and leaned against it briefly. The silence was deep. Not comforting exactly, just necessary. She set down her briefcase, placed her tablet on the desk, and exhaled. On her computer screen blinked an email. Confirmation, keynote speech, Crestwood Conference Center, 3:30 p.m. She didn't click it. Instead, she reached into the briefcase and pulled out a yellow notepad. It had sat untouched for months. On it, she'd once started a memoir. The title, scratched at the top in her own hand, "The Bench is Not a Shield." She tore the page off and threw it in the trash. A soft knock pulled her from the fog. "Come in," she called. Her assistant, Mary Ann, stepped in, carrying a slim folder. "Morning, Judge Pearce. Courtroom set for your 11 o'clock. Nothing heavy, just a few motion hearings. Oh, and Henry Clayton said he wants to meet before lunch. Should I slot him in at noon?" "Yes, please," Bella said. "And thank you." Mary Ann paused before leaving. "You okay today?" Bella hesitated a second too long. "Yes," she said, "just focused." The door closed. Bella sat at her desk, her back straight as ever, and stared at the folder in front of her. Motion to suppress, probation violation, status, hearing, all the usual architecture of a Thursday morning. But something in her had shifted. When she took the bench at 11, it was business as usual. Gavel down, chin up, voice calm. No one in the courtroom could tell what had happened, and that was the part that cut the deepest. Because she could still do it? She could still wear the robe like armor, speak with power, control the rhythm of justice like a conductor. No one questioned her authority here. Not the attorneys, not the officers posted at the back, not even the nervous defendants waiting to hear the sound of their fate. But outside those courtroom doors, her robe had meant nothing. That truth hovered just beyond every sentence she handed down. When court recessed for lunch, Bella returned to chambers and found Henry Clayton waiting, already seated in the visitor chair. His silver hair curled slightly at the edges, and his suspenders looked older than most law clerks. "You look sharp," he said, standing to greet her. "Navy suits you. Then again, what doesn't?" Bella smiled, the first real one all day. "I've worn black robes too long to be flattered by navy," she replied, taking the chair across from him. "I caught the hearing," he said. "That motion to suppress, you handled it brilliantly. Didn't let that snide prosecutor steer the narrative. You still got the bite, Bella." She didn't respond, just tilted her head. Henry sat back. Something's wrong. It wasn't a question. Bella folded her hands in her lap, thumbs pressing together. "I had a traffic stop yesterday." He frowned. "Speeding?" She laughed once, softly. "I was packed, at a rest stop, reviewing notes. A cruiser passed, then doubled back, asked for my ID, said I matched the description of a stolen car." Henry's mouth twitched. "And what did you do?" "I gave them my ID, let them look through my briefcase." You let them search you? She nodded. There was no other way it was going to end peacefully. Henry exhaled through his nose, sat forward. You should report it. I'm thinking about it. You shouldn't have to think. That's an abuse of power. She looked at him, eyes steady. I know, but I also know what people will say, that I'm making it about race, that I'm playing victim, that I should have said who I was. You shouldn't have to say who you are. Should doesn't matter. Henry rubbed his eyes. You want me to make a call? No, Bella said firmly. Not yet. I need time. He nodded slowly. You know I've got your back. Always. She placed a hand over his. Thank you. After he left, Bella sat motionless for several minutes. The light from the tall windows had softened, casting long lines across the floor. She reached for her phone. Clara's name blinked on the screen, unread texts, waiting. You still haven't told me how your morning went. I saw pictures from the event page. You looked stunning, by the way. Call me. Bella considered it. She typed a response. It went fine. Busy. We'll talk later. Then deleted it. She dialed instead. Clara answered on the first ring. Hi, Mom. You done changing lives already? Bella smiled. Not quite. I have a moment, though. You sounded weird in your text yesterday. Everything okay? Bella hesitated. Then, softly, I was pulled over. What? Clara's voice immediately sharpened. Why? Vanny said. My car matched a stolen vehicle. It didn't, of course. Did you tell them who you were? No. Clara fell silent. Are you okay? I'm fine, just tired of the reminders. You need to report it. I know. Then do it, Mom. You can't let them get away with that. Bella breathed in, slow and full. I will, just not yet. She heard her daughter's sigh. You always say that. But if you won't speak up, who will? Bella didn't answer, because somewhere deep down, she didn't know anymore. The power she wielded on the bench had always felt like a tool for others, for the broken, the accused, the ignored. But what did she do when she was the one bruised by the system, when even her title couldn't protect her from being mistaken for less? That night, Bella stood in her bathroom, her robe hanging on a hook behind her. She stared at her reflection in silence. She traced her collarbone with one finger as if checking for some invisible wound. Then she turned off the light and walked away. Tomorrow would come, and with it, the choice, again, of whether to remain silent or to let the robe do what it was meant to do, not protect her, but empower her to speak. Bella Pearce had always been louder than her mother. Where Bella held tension in her shoulders and buried fire beneath silk, Clara wore hers in the arch of her eyebrows and the edge of her words. She paced the length of her small apartment kitchen, earbuds in, voice sharp. I mean it, Mom. This isn't just about you. What if they do it to someone else? Someone who can't quote the Constitution from memory, someone without a robe to go back to? Bella sat on the other end of the line, legs crossed in her living room armchair, the weight of her daughter's voice pressing like a storm at her front door. I'm not minimizing what happened, Bella said gently. I'm choosing when and how I respond. That's not silence, Clara. It's strategy. You call it strategy. I call it hesitation. Strategic hesitation, Bella replied with the faintest smile. But, Clara, a pause. They both exhaled. Look, Clara said, softer now. I know how you operate, I do, but people need to see this. They need to see that it happens to everyone, even you. Bella stood, walked to the window. Outside, the neighborhood was quiet. A jogger passed with a dog. Someone carried groceries into a townhouse. Life didn't stop just because hers had stuttered. There's a hearing next week, Bella said. A review board. I'm presiding. So? So, they'll be there. The officers. Dunlap and Renshaw. What? For what? Misconduct complaint, different case, but it's them. You're kidding. Bella shook her head. The universe has a strange sense of timing. Or maybe it's not timing, Clara said. Maybe it's a decision waiting to be made. Maybe it's yours. That night, Bella sat at her desk, with her nameplate pushed to the side. The brass rectangle reflected her face, half in shadow, half in lamplight. Exercise helped to increase her mood, her energy, and unwilling. She pulled a folder from her drawer and began writing. Not about the hearing, not about law. But to stop. She wrote down everything. The pause of the cruiser, the tone of his voice, the chill in the air when he ordered her out. The briefcase, the moment his eyes landed on the badge. He didn't stop until the page was full. Then she folded it once, sealed it in an envelope, and slid it into the center drawer. The next morning she arrived at the courthouse early, not for paperwork or briefings. She needed to see someone. Lisa Garrison, county sheriff, sat behind her desk, sipping coffee from a mug that read, "I don't do small talk. I do justice." She looked up, surprised. Well, she said. Judge Pearce in my office before 8 a.m.? I should mark my calendar. I need to speak with you, Bella said. Lisa gestured to the chair across from her. Sit. Tell me everything. Bella did, start to finish. Lisa listened without interrupting, her face unreadable, her hands folded. When it was over, she leaned back, exhaled, and stared at the ceiling. Dunlap's name doesn't surprise me, she said finally. Renshaw's green. He probably followed orders. I'm not filing a complaint, Bella said. Lisa frowned. Why not? Because I'm presiding over a misconduct hearing next week. They'll be in the room. Lisa raised an eyebrow. You going to recuse yourself? No, Isha. Bella nodded. Lisa studied her, then leaned forward. You're not like the others, Judge Pearce. You don't swing the hammer just to hear the echo. But I hope to God you don't stay quiet about this. I won't, Bella said. Not forever. Later that day, Bella ran into Henry in the hallway. He was flipping through a case file, but his eyes caught hers immediately. You did something, he said. Maybe. He grinned. Good? Don't get too excited, she said. This isn't a crusade. No, he replied. It's a reckoning. In her chambers, Bella reviewed the file for next week's hearing. The complaint was unrelated to her stop, an accusation of racial profiling during a roadside search. The complainant was a 19-year-old college student. No priors, no ticket, no cause. The report read like déjà vu. She closed the folder and sat back. The robe hanging behind her desk suddenly felt heavier than usual. That evening, Clara visited her. They sat on the couch, legs tucked under them like they used to when Clara was in high school, and they'd argue about curfews or grades. You were always the calm one, Clara said. Even when they came at you sideways, you'd just raise an eyebrow and cut them down with a single sentence. Bella chuckled. That eyebrow's done more work than any gavel I've ever held. I just don't want you to carry it alone, Mom. You don't have to. I know, Bella said, but I also know how to choose my battles. Clara looked at her. This one chose you. They fell into silence. Eventually, Clara stood. When you're ready, she said, hugging her mother tightly. Say something. Don't let them own that moment. Bella didn't answer, but the next morning she wrote a letter, addressed to the State Judicial Review Board. It wasn't a complaint. It was a statement, and for the first time since that stop, she signed her full name with the weight it deserved. Bella M. Pearce, Judge of the State Superior Court. Black woman. Witness. She placed the letter in an envelope and walked it down the courthouse hallway herself. With each step, the silence around her cracked. Travis Dunlap adjusted his tie in the reflection of the courthouse window, his smirk faint but certain. He hated these internal review hearings, paper pushers with badges and no backbone pretending to hold real cops accountable. A complete waste of time. The accusations this time were about some punk college kid screaming racism after a traffic stop that lasted 10 minutes. He hadn't even drawn his weapon. Bet the kid's mom told him to file the complaint, Dunlap muttered, voice low as he checked his belt and clipped his badge back into place. Everyone's got a lawyer now. Beside him, Officer Cole Renshaw stood quieter than usual, his rookie nervousness worn down after nearly a year on the job, but not gone. His eyes tracked every passing attorney, every security guard, every polished pair of shoes that clicked past them down the marble hallway. "You good?" Dunlap asked. Cole nodded. "Yeah. Just don't like this stuff." "It's routine," Dunlap said. "They gotta make it look like they care." Cole didn't respond. His hands were in his pockets. He didn't remind Dunlap about the stop at the rest area. He didn't mention the woman in the Lincoln, the briefcase, the badge. But he remembered it every second. A clerk opened the double doors to the hearing chamber. "You're up," she said, voice flat. Dunlap stepped forward first, posture rigid, confidence painted across his shoulders. The room was smaller than a courtroom, but it still held weight. Clean wood paneling, a polished table, a dozen seats for committee members, and a single bench at the far end. And behind that bench, Cole stopped walking. Dunlap didn't notice until he was nearly in the center of the room. Then he turned and saw her. Bella Pearce, robed, seated behind the elevated desk with her hands folded, eyes calm, expression unreadable. Her presence swallowed the room, not loud, not angry, just absolute. Dunlap blinked. "You," he said before he could stop himself. Bella did not respond. She looked down at the docket. This hearing is now in session. Cole sat slowly, his breath caught halfway in his chest. Dunlap remained standing. He cleared his throat. "Ma'am, if you may take your seat, Officer Dunlap." Her voice was like frost, controlled, unshaken. She sat. The committee chair, a seasoned prosecutor named Rosalind Green, began the formal reading of the complaint. The plaintiff was not present. They'd chosen not to attend. But the facts were recorded. Vehicle stopped without probable cause. Officer raised his voice. Body camera footage revealed no clear justification. Bella listened, eyes on the paper, face impassive. When it came time for the officers to speak, Dunlap leaned forward, elbows on the table. "Ma'am, with respect, this was a routine traffic stop. I acted within department policy and I—" "Officer Dunlap," Bella interrupted. "Do you recognize me?" The room froze. Dunlap swallowed. "Yes, ma'am. From the other day. Would you like to state for the record the circumstances of that encounter?" His eyes flicked toward Cole, who stared at the table. "I saw a vehicle parked at the rest stop. It matched a description." "There was no description," Bella said. "There was no call, no alert, and you never announced yourself." She leaned forward, not in threat, but in full authority. "You've approached a parked car. You made assumptions based on my appearance, and you searched my property without consent or probable cause." Dunlap opened his mouth, then shut it. "I did not file a complaint," Bella continued, "because I wanted to see what you'd do when you didn't know who I was, when you assumed you held power over a stranger." Her voice never rose, not once. "I was not your complainant," she said, "but I could have been." The committee chair adjusted her glasses. "Judge Pearce, would you like to be recused from this proceeding?" Bella shook her head. "No, I am not the plaintiff. I am not the judge in this hearing. I am simply a witness now." She turned to Cole. "Officer Renshaw, would you like to speak?" He hesitated, then stood. "I didn't know what to do," he said. "That day at the rest stop, I saw what was happening and I froze. I told myself it wasn't my place to challenge my partner." "But I knew it was wrong." Dunlap glared at him, face flushed. Bella said nothing. She didn't need to. The room shifted around her silence. Later, when the hearing adjourned, Rosalind Green stood from her chair. "Judge Pearce, thank you for your time and your candor. Your presence today clarified more than any written statement could." Bella nodded once. Dunlap and Renshaw were dismissed. They left the chamber quietly. In the hallway, Cole exhaled like he hadn't breathed in an hour. Dunlap slammed his fist against the side of the vending machine. "Els, she set us up," he muttered. "No," Cole said. "She didn't." Dunlap turned. "You think that was fair?" "I think," Cole said slowly, "we finally saw what it feels like when someone's watching us back." Down the corridor, Bella removed her robe. She folded it carefully, tucked it over her arm, and walked toward the parking lot. Clara was waiting by her car. "How did it go?" she asked. Bella didn't smile, but her voice, when it came, was steadier than it had been in days. "I think I finally spoke." Clara took her mother's hand. "Good," she said. "Now let them listen." The smell of fresh coffee drifted through the glass doors of the Crestwood Judicial Conference Center. Inside the grand hall, the buzz of conversation echoed beneath the tall ceilings and chandeliers. Judges, attorneys, clerks, and law students wandered from booth to booth, gathering brochures and business cards. The name Judge Bella Pearce was printed boldly on a placard at the front of the main stage, flanked by gold drapes and a microphone waiting to carry her words to the crowd. Bella stood off to the side in a quiet corridor, adjusting the soft folds of her robe with slow, careful hands. Her scarf today was blue, light and open like the sky. Clara stood next to her, holding her mother's briefcase, silent for once, her usual fire softened by pride. "You ready?" Clara asked. Bella didn't answer immediately. She looked down at her hands. They weren't shaking. "I am," she said finally. "But not just for the speech." Clara smiled. "You already gave your speech, Mom. This is just the encore." Bella turned, the corners of her mouth lifting slightly. Then she walked toward the stage. The applause began the moment she was spotted. It wasn't thunderous. It didn't roar. But it was strong, steady, filled with knowing. She approached the podium, her heels clicking against the polished floor. She took her time. She didn't rush to the mic. She never had. When she reached it, she paused, let the silence settle. Then she began. "I was asked to speak today about integrity on the bench," she said, her voice filling the room without force. "But I want to begin with a moment that had nothing to do with the courtroom. A moment that reminded me of the burden we carry when we wear this robe, and how quickly that burden can become invisible when we take it off." Some leaned forward, others sat back, but no one looked away. "Last week, I was pulled over while parked at a rest stop," she continued. "I was not speeding. I was not violating any laws. I was reading notes in my car, on my way to prepare for this very conference." A murmur passed through the room. "I was asked to step out. I was searched. I was questioned. I was presumed guilty, not because of anything I did, but because of what I looked like. Because of who I am." The room went still. I said nothing at the time, not because I was afraid, though I had every reason to be, but because I was listening. I was watching. I was reminding myself of something I've always known. She paused. Her voice softened. "This robe is not armor. It does not make us untouchable. It does not keep us safe when we're out in the world. It only works when those around us respect what it represents. And sometimes they don't." "Oh." In the second row, Henry Clayton sat with his arms crossed, nodding slowly. But silence. Bella said, has a way of turning into permission, and I cannot, will not grant that kind of permission anymore. Not to prejudice, not to fear, and not to those who forget that justice doesn't start in the courtroom. It starts with how we treat people when no one is watching. A beat, then applause, not scattered, unified, strong. She stepped back from the podium, bowed her head briefly, and returned to her seat. Later that day, as the crowd mingled during lunch, Bella stepped outside into the courtyard. A warm breeze blew through the trees. Birds chattered in the branches above. Lisa Garrison approached from the side, hands in her pockets, sunglasses perched on her head. "You broke the internet, Judge," she said, smirking. "Your speech is already up on 3 legal blogs." Bella raised an eyebrow. That was fast. "Journalism loves a mic drop," Lisa replied. Then, more seriously, Internal Affairs issued their decision. Dunlap's been suspended. Renshaw's getting retrained. Neither of them's happy. Bella nodded. "That's fine. I didn't want punishment. I wanted recognition." "Well, you got it, loud and clear." They stood in silence for a moment. Then Lisa said, "Thank you for not letting it slide." Bella smiled faintly. It was time. That evening, Bella drove without the radio on. No podcasts, no news, just the sound of tires rolling over asphalt and wind pressing gently against her window. She took the same route back as the day of the stop, same rest stop exit, same trees bending overhead like old, silent watchers. On impulse, she pulled off and parked again. This time, no cruiser followed. She sat quietly in the exact same spot, let her eyes close, breathed in the stillness. Then, slowly, she got out of the car. She walked the length of the lot, past the vending machines, past the picnic tables, past the spot where it had all unfolded. She paused beside the bench overlooking the trees. From her coat pocket, she pulled out a folded slip of paper. She had written something on it that morning. She read it now, just a single sentence. "Power is not proven when it is used. It is proven when it is withheld." She folded the note again, slipped it beneath the corner of the bench, then turned and walked back to her car. No badge, no robe, just Bella. Fold.